lounging, son.
Welcome to the Comic Lounge. Today I got another awesome interview for you guys. Today I'm talking to Sofie Dodgson. You may be familiar with her work because she's the new colorist on Bitterroot with the new volume, and she's also colored Tank Girl, which is one of my favorite characters.
Oh,
how's it going, Sofie?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm all right.
Awesome. So for those of the people watching or listening, can you just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, okay. So I am a comic colorist, as you've said. I'm pretty new to comics as well, so I'm kind of freaking out that you're gonna like ask me all these intense questions about superheroes, and I'll be like, I don't know. My background is kind of in theatre and fashion, and then like more recently, I've just started working in comics, which is awesome. Yeah. So,
I mean, did you read comics growing up at all? Have you?
Yeah. I mean, I totally did. Like, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm English. So I kind of grew up reading like all the European comics, like Tintin and Asterix, and like the French kind of bande dessinée comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then I remember like when I was a teenager, I guess, I was in the library and I saw all these like graphic novels on the shelf, and I was like, oh my God, what are these? These are cool. And that was like my first introduction to like proper comics, I guess, like big comics.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like Alan Moore and all that kind of stuff. And that's when I found Tank Girl as well. And what else was I reading back then? Things like Transmetropolitan, stuff like that. And where I grew up, there was a pretty good comic book shop, but I couldn't really ever like afford to buy comics and graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to like borrow them from the library, take them to school and like photocopy them. Just crazy. And one of the funny things was I remember borrowing like Tank Girl from the library and photocopying it at school so I could like color in some of the pages.
Mm-hmm.
And then like last year I got hired to color the pages that I'd like photocopied as a kid, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. How did that particular job come about? I mean, you were a fan, and that must have been crazy to transition into doing the colored versions of the comic.
It's kind of a funny story, like completely happened by accident. I lived in this like crazy warehouse community in East London, like in my early 20s. And when I was moving in, like I think I was like carrying a sofa or something, and this guy came over to like give us a hand and introduced himself. And he was Rufus Dayglow, who was the artist on Tank Girl at the time. And he was like, oh, my name's Rufus Dayglow. And I was like, oh shit. You know, like I recognized the name. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. So I was trying not to be like this crazy fangirl as this guy just politely helped me carry my couch. And, you know, we became friends because we lived in the same like warehouse space. And I just started like helping him a little bit. Like when he had deadlines, like I'd kind of help clean up his scans in Photoshop. And, you know, we were just hanging out. And eventually he asked me if I wanted to try coloring. And I was like, yeah, sure, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was like how it happened, really. So I colored Bad Wind Rising, but that was like, I guess that was in like 2012, 2013, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't really do much until more recently because I was working in kind of theatre and events and fashion and stuff. And then lockdown has been this kind of weird like comic boom for me because
Mm-hmm.
I lost all of my event work like in one fell swoop. So kind of had to like refocus my energies.
Yeah, so I mean, like you do so many different things, you know. So what even like how did you even get started coloring comics? That was literally how you started. Somebody just asked, and you're like, okay, I'll try it, or did you do it before?
I mean, yeah, that makes it sound really crazy, but that is kind of how it happened. Like I was helping like clean up line art and and scanning and stuff. And then it kind of like, you know, I was helping do halftone, and then it kind of developed from that. Yeah, I was really lucky to just be asked to kind of have a go at it. And, you know, I'm making it sound like it came completely out of the blue, like there are transferable skills. Like, you know, I paint scenery for TV and sets and, you know, theatre and stuff. So I guess I kind of applied skills from other things I did across.
But was it ever a plan? Did you ever like have that in the back of your mind, like as a fan, like, oh, it would be cool to kind of work on comics someday?
I guess I never thought about it particularly. I'm really like, oh, I'm not really good at planning anything. Really. Like, oh, it sounds really like silly, but I feel like I've just been really lucky to get to work with really cool people. And you know, maybe it's like an attention span issue thing for me. Like, you know, I graduated from college, and then I worked in video games for 6 years because I thought that would be cool. And then I kind of got into theatre because I was into it at the time. And I don't know, yeah, I've been really lucky to kind of fall into things, which is probably a really annoying thing to hear because...
No, I mean, it's just crazy. I can't believe it. Kind of just like, because like I said, you've done you worked with Square Enix. That's the video game company you worked with, correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, you know about me.
And like video games, was that like the first, like from school, it was straight to video games? And what did you do while at Square Enix?
Well, while I was at university in London, I needed a part-time job to pay for college. And I just wanted to work in video games. Like I loved games so much. And needed a part-time job. And so I started doing QA testing, which was just like the best job ever for like this like 19-year-old living in London alone for the first time. And I was being paid to like play video games. I was like, this is crazy. Like, how is this a job? I mean, it paid terribly. And I spent all of the money I earned there, like at the pub, I think. But, and from working in quality assurance, I sort of became a manager of the team. And then after I graduated, I became an editor for a while. And it kind of felt like that was going to be my thing, like video game kind of text editing. Because with Square Enix, we'd work with translators, and then we'd edit the text. So it wasn't like functionality testing, it was like script and you know, storyline editing. And I guess I think like the credit crunch kind of hit in Europe, and like a lot of the testing got outsourced to like Eastern Europe, and the video games industry at the time kind of like, you know, just started to spread out a bit. And you know, there was kind of brief talk about moving to Japan and, you know, all this kind of cool stuff. And then it all kind of plummeted.
And can you talk a little bit about your time between Square Enix and Tank Girl? I've done some research. I know you worked with a lot of different magazines like GQ and stuff like that. You worked with people like Lady Gaga. I mean, like just the span of everything. Like I was blown away when I was like researching and like just watching the list of stuff, you know? So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that time before we jump into like what you're doing now.
Sure. So yeah, I guess because the video games thing, my husband and me started a theatre company. He's an actor, and when he graduated, he started the theatre company, and that was doing really well, getting good kind of reviews. And I kind of started like naturally just started kind of being their art director. So, you know, kind of designing the sets and the costumes and that kind of stuff. And then from there, I started getting kind of like more freelance work with other theatre things. And that's when I discovered I really like costume, I guess. And, you know, I was one of those kids who was always making costumes and stuff, like years before I knew what cosplay even meant. Like, and so I don't know, like, again, I guess I don't even think about this progression. I kind of hurtle through things like a crazy woman. But yeah, so I guess I started taking on like freelance costume work, which started off being kind of like friends, bands were making music videos and they needed like, you know, some crazy scenery or an exploding kind of prosthetic hand or, you know, whatever. And I became kind of known as like the person to hire who'd figure out the kind of insane thing that you wanted to do in your music video on a really tiny budget.
Yeah, your costume work and your makeup stuff is insane, dude. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Like, I mean, that is my day job, I suppose. And comics has been this like wonderful sideline that's kind of now picking up speed for me, which is really cool.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you're on one of my favorite titles. You're the new colorist for Bitterroot as of Volume 2. And not only did you jump on the book, but my favorite editor in comic books, Shelly Bond, also jumped on. And I know that you've worked with her on other stuff, and we'll get into that. But how is she the one that recruited you to Bitterroot, or were you on Bitterroot before? How did that all play out?
Oh, this is like my lack of like planning and stuff. Again, is going to emerge. A friend tagged me on Twitter because they saw Sanford was looking for a colorist, and they tagged me on Twitter, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't used Twitter since like 2011. Like, all of my tweets are definitely just like me being like, hey, I'm drunk, like, cool, you know. So I was like, oh crap. So I jumped on Twitter and like was like, I cannot reply to this like professional comic book person from this account that I haven't used in a decade. So I moved over to Instagram, which has like my recent kind of work, and I sent him a message on that, which was kind of really lucky, really, because he said to me recently that I never use Instagram. Like, it was kind of weird that I noticed this message pop up, and I sent him some samples, mostly kind of tank girl stuff because that's all I had. And you know, he was like, oh, you know, there's not a lot here, and I was like, yeah, I know. And but he let me do some sample pages, and yeah, it just worked out.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, that book is like one of my favorites, and just like you being on, and like I could tell the difference with like Shelly being added into the mix too. You know, I think the second volume has been really strong.
Yeah. Shelly is amazing. Like, she's my new best friend.
I know she has nothing but nice things to say about you. And you worked with her on Insider Art as well.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that project and how, I know that you, because you guys took different rooms of the house.
Yeah.
Right. So you edited and curated your own little, your spot. She did her spot, stuff like that. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and what that experience was like working on that.
It was awesome, actually. It gave me like this real focus at the start of lockdown, you know, when everyone was going crazy, and every day I was getting an email being like, oh, this festival's cancelled, this event's cancelled. I was just like, shit, all my work is just draining away rapidly. And you know, I've been talking to Shelly a little bit because we did kind of an interview about Bitterroot between us. And, you know, we just carried on kind of chatting and just got on really well. Even though we have like opposite taste in music, which is like a big thing for her.
Yeah.
You know, we managed to get over that. And she said she was doing this project like Insider Art, and did I want to come on board to color some pages? I was like, yeah, sure. You know, like, I need something to do. I need some more practice coloring. It'd be nice to, you know, work with some more artists. And then after saying I'd color some pages, kind of a week later, I'd like built and designed the website, made the logo, editing my own section. And I was like, she's very good at like twisting your arm and making you real, like, kind of think that, you know, you'd volunteered to do it all. So I did, for Insider Art, I did the craft section, because that kind of, you know, is my background. And it was awesome, really. Like, I got to bring in a lot of my friends who aren't necessarily comics people, which was a really cool opportunity. Like, I brought in kind of illustrators, costume makers, you know, people who hadn't really ever made a comic before, which was cool because it, you know, we had these really like explosive, fresh, like kind of ideas. Yeah, that was awesome. And I think it's doing all right, the book. I think there are plans to kind of take it further.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Because I was gonna print my copy out, and then I found out how much it was gonna cost to print that one copy, and I was like, I'll just wait. I'll just wait till there's a Kickstarter or something.
There's stuff happening. There's stuff happening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I told Shelly that anything I can do to help, I would love to do, because
Cool.
I love everything that she's had a hand in pretty much all of some of my favorite stuff in comic books, and she's just such a great person, you know.
She's amazing at just like rallying that team, and she
corrals talent. It's crazy.
Yeah, she's so passionate. Like I think she's awesome. Really cool. Like I think, you know, when I first found out I was working with her, I was a bit like, oh, it's scary. And but, you know, we got on like a house on fire. We got on really well.
Whose idea was it to make it? It was Shelly's idea, right? To do it for just female and non-binary comic book shop owners, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do you know how much money you guys have raised so far?
Oh, I'm not sure what the total is. I know we've got there's some more eBay auctions happening of the different artists who did cats and things. So I'd have to get an update from Shelly on the total.
Okay.
But I think it's been doing all right.
Awesome. And, you know, like we talked about the fact that you've done design and costume makeup. Is there anything that you can share that you've worked on that maybe some of us may be familiar with, but may not have known it was you necessarily?
I guess something I did recently was quite fun. It was for Comedy Central UK though, so I don't know if it came over to the US, but I did this really fun, like super camp, awesome like comedy sketch show called Dragony Aunts, which was great. It was like these two amazing drag queens kind of solving people's like dilemmas, and I did the art direction for that, which was this really big theatrical crazy set, and I think that's on YouTube actually. I think Comedy Central has it on their channel. Yeah, lots of kind of like weird little music video things, like kind of, I'm trying to think, I did some stuff for Scream, like the dubstep artist. I made like a chest piece for Lady Gaga, but that was pretty cool. That was like a fangirl moment. But I guess more like we had a kid 5 years ago, and in the last 5 years we've kind of started focusing more on like children's theatre and children's events. So we usually all summer we go on tour. Like I'm at a festival every weekend from like June till September. It feels quite strange to have just spent the last few months sat at a computer instead.
That's funny. I was going to ask, you know, I'm a parent too. My daughter is 5 as well. How has that been? How has that been trying to work from home? I mean, are schools canceled there too? You're shaking your head, so I can tell. Yeah, it's stressful.
It's been really, really challenging. And we took my son out of school a bit early as well, before they were kind of fully closed. So he has special needs, so we were worried about his health. So yeah, we kind of, and like a lot of my friends live in Italy, which is like the first place in Europe. It really hit terribly. And I think we kind of had like this forewarning of how bad it was going to get from my friends in Italy, who were just like, dude, you need to take this seriously. So yeah, we left school like early. It has been, I mean, you can probably see the bags under my eyes. I don't think
you can probably see the bags under my eyes too. So
I don't think I've slept since like March. It's fine. You know, he sits next to me, playing on his iPad while I kind of color on my iPad, and you know, only sometimes he like steals and swaps them around. You know, it's been tough. Like Weetabix being like rubbed onto me as I'm working.
Yeah. Like, how do you separate, right? Like, because you're working from home, he's not in school. How do you separate the time, like where this is work time and then your family time, since like now everything's all together kind of?
My husband is amazing. So, and because his work is entirely event-based, like he lost everything,
Hmm.
you know. So he's been doing like 90% of the childcare. So it's that weird kind of thing where it's like if he hadn't lost his work, I don't know what we'd have done for childcare anyway. So it's been kind of weirdly fortunate, I suppose. But yeah, the family balance is tough, really. Like a couple of weeks ago when I was working on like 4 deadlines, I was just like, I am not being a good employee. I am not being a good wife. I am not being a good mother. I'm trying to do all these things and I'm not really succeeding at any of them. That was like my kind of like moment. But I don't know. I think I've cleared my schedule for the first time since like Christmas. So I'm taking a few days off now yeah.
But now that school's starting, and
Oh, your school's opening?
no, it's from home.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be from home, and oh
Homeschooling.
God, I know.
So much like love for teachers now. I think they all
I know.
like our children are horrible people. Like teachers make me think they're awful.
I know. And it's crazy because like I hear, oh, your daughter's so pleasant in the classroom. Like what? Whose daughter? You know what I mean? Like she's crazy at home, man. She's like smacking me and yelling at me, and yeah. From my wife when she's trying to paint and my daughter's like getting into the paints or she's getting into something and paint. Like she painted underneath the desk that I'm sitting at while my wife was painting and she didn't even notice. Like she got underneath and just white paint everywhere.
Well, fortunately, with digital, I can just click the undo button. But
yeah, no, this is
your wife paintings in the background.
Yeah, this is all her stuff in the background.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to ask you too, especially over the last few years, I think female readership and creators in comic books has continued to grow and is growing each year. Still not where I think it should be. I was wondering what you think helped promote that change and what do you think needs to continue to happen in order for that to grow, on both ends, creators and readership?
The big questions. I think there's like generally like since like the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, and I'm hesitant to use the word woke, but I'm gonna, like, people are just, I think like the youth are like just more enraged. Like there's like the new wave of kind of like feminism is really activated in a way that makes me feel like my generation's been a bit lazy. Like I think like there's a lot of like amazing up and coming like female and non-binary artists who are just going, hey, this isn't fair, like come on, let's deal with this. And kind of like trying to find a better balance. And it's kind of been the same in video games. Like when I first started doing that, there weren't many females then. I remember like going to like press events and being kind of ignored and then being like, hey, no, I'm here to present this game, and then being like, you don't play Dragon Quest, and I'm like, I edited Dragon Quest. Like,
yeah.
And it's kind of a strange time for me to be like becoming a part of the comics industry, because I didn't know about Comicsgate until relatively recently, and I didn't know about kind of the firing of female editors until relatively recently. That was all kind of a shock. I was like, whoa, this is like all the same stuff that was happening in kind of games, and it's here too. And I kind of thought comics was, I don't know, I was surprised that it's as rampant as it is. And the horror stories that you see on like Twitter and stuff, like following Tess Fowler and her kind of,
oh my God, I know.
Like someone recently was posting that, she was given cancer by God because of,
I can't stand that guy. I mean,
stuff.
The Comicsgate stuff. I mean, because I didn't hear about Gamersgate. I think, that was the first thing. And I had never known. And then something came up on Comicsgate like a couple of years ago when I started my site. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, what is that shit? So I started researching, and then I saw like some of the hate that was coming from it. And one of the artists that you're talking about that said that, you know, he drew comic books that I really used to. They were some of
Oh,
my favorite. I
yeah,
cannot even look at those books anymore.
yeah,
And I know that that's a topic that comes up. Like, well, how do you separate the art from the artist?
yeah,
For me,
sure.
it's like it's very easy,
Yeah,
especially if somebody is as a scumbag like that.
yeah,
And um,
yeah, yeah. It's a crazy one, isn't it? That kind of art versus artist thing. Like so many musicians I love, like, you know, kind of the Stones and Bowie and, you know, people like that had like really young groupies, and I'm like, oh man. And then one of the first comics I was really into that I used to get out from the library was the Transmet series, which I
I
just thought
know.
was the coolest thing ever. And then like seeing this like Warren Ellis stuff on Twitter, I was like, oh no, what the hell? And
Yeah. I know
yeah,
it's a tough one, man. It's you
it,
know, it's a conversation I have with a lot of people on my
mm,
site. You know, because there's a few of us that are on the site and stuff, and it's just hard. It's really hard to like have work that like you really connected with,
mm,
and you see these people, and it feels like, I mean, it's kind of calmed down, I guess, a little bit the last couple of weeks, but for a minute there was like every other day somebody else.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. The future, small press, indie-owned stuff.
Yes.
That's where all the cool stuff that I think is awesome comes from. Yeah. So I mean, maybe that's the future. I mean, I guess things like the big comic book publishers, like they still work in the same way that I guess they've always worked in, and with kind of things like you know, with social media and the internet and like new means of like production and
Mhm.
showing your art and stuff, like increasingly maybe that's less relevant, um, that kind of traditional format. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, especially with what DC did last week or this
Oh yeah,
past couple days, just firing a bunch of people. Um,
yeah. I mean, this lockdown COVID stuff is,
oh, this is insane.
I
Yeah.
think it's really just shown how fragile a lot of things were.
Hmm.
um, you know, things are tumbling down.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Well, let's try to jump back to something a little bit more positive. Can you talk about some of your favorite projects that you've worked on? Maybe share a couple
Oh
fun memories of something.
yeah. I just literally like the day before yesterday finished working on Maddie, which is the new Alex de Campi, Duncan Jones Kickstarter comic. Have you seen that?
No.
Um,
Well,
so
that's good
Duncan
to
Jones
know.
is the director of Moon, the movie, and they've just done a like hugely successful Kickstarter called Maddie, which is short for Madison, who's the main character.
Hmm.
And I coloured that with Rufus Dayglow, so that was kind of my comics journey coming full circle.
Oh, very cool.
Um, yeah, that was awesome. I think the Kickstarter's funded now, but I think it'll be coming out in stores anyway. And yeah, and Bitterroot obviously has just been the best. Like Sanford is the nicest person
Oh, I
ever.
love Sanford. Yeah.
He's like been my big brother through like lockdown for sure.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's so supportive, and you know, like I'm so new to this, and he's kind of just been like the greatest mentor. And every time I get his inks through, I'm like, why am I allowed to do this? This is so cool. um, yeah, and I can't believe how quickly it's gone. Like, I guess I started Bitterroot around Christmas time, and we just finished issue 10 like a week or two ago. Um, and it's just been amazing. I mean, well, it's been stressful too. Like I have imposter syndrome. Like every single thing I get asked to do, I'm like, why are they asking me to do this? I shouldn't be allowed to do this. But you know, I love it. And when it's done, it's like the craziest adrenaline rush. Like it feels awesome.
Yeah, like I said, this arc has been phenomenal, and I can see the shift from, not to say that volume one wasn't great, because I did
Yeah,
love it, and Rico
yeah.
Renzi did a great job on coloring on that
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
I think his colors are great.
But this second volume, man, it's
Yeah.
ramping up so great. Um, and I wanted to ask, having mastered so many different skills,
Oh, I don't know
art
if I've
wise.
ever.
What's next for you? Any other things that you'd like to dabble
Um,
in, or?
I'm such a dabbler. That's exactly the word. Like professional dabbler. I had so much fun doing insider art, and the section I did was all kind of comics about craft projects. I think it would be quite cool to do a comic about, artists around the world doing kind of a comic about kind of their regional arts and crafts and things. I think that would be really cool.
Mhm.
Like I had an Eastern European artist doing like Russian doll um, things, and I had a Mexican artist doing the Mexican kind of flag paper
Mhm.
Picasso banners, and I kind of think that's got legs actually, like different crafts. I don't know, maybe it'd be for kids or something, but I was thinking about trying to get Arts Council funding for that, which is a thing we have in the UK. Yeah, so that's kind of playing on my mind a little bit. Also, I guess slightly related, because all the theatre and events we do is such a it's every weekend for half the year. Like there's not much breathing space, and I'm always making costumes and sets for kind of other people's shows and stuff. And I'd quite like to develop some of my own. Like I'd like to write a kids show, like a proper kind of Jim Henson-y puppety kind of
Oh,
show.
that'd be cool.
And I've just, it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but I've never really had the time, to do it, because I've always got to be earning that money. So yeah, I'd like to do something like that. These are the vague thoughts in my head.
Yeah,
Probably cure.
that would be awesome. I definitely think that Jim Henson type stuff is missing, where there's actual sets. It's not
Yeah,
all CGI.
I
You
love
lose the
it.
magic when because for me, like I get taken out of it. Like I grew up with like the '80s, like Labyrinth
Oh
and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, and they don't
Dark.
do it anymore. So,
Yeah, well, there was the new Dark Crystal, which was pretty good. Did you see that?
was that the one on Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix, and they
Yeah, I
used
haven't
all.
checked
I
it
think
out.
it was like 90% kind of live effects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love that, and I think there is a renaissance of that kind of thing. Um, like Harryhausen, like all those people, I just love.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I think having a kid, like you just see things through children's eyes, and that sense of wonder that kids have and imagination. Like I love kind of working, like our kids shows have been doing really well, and yeah, I'd maybe like to do more of that kind of stuff. But then also now with COVID, like, is theatre going to be a thing anymore? Like, um, I kind of halfway through lockdown, I was like, oh, I'm going to write some amazing kids shows and tour them next summer. And then a few days ago, I heard that Glastonbury, which is kind of our big UK festival, like I
Right.
guess kind of like Coachella, but cool. Um, um, they were saying, oh, maybe we won't do that for 2021. And now I'm like, oh, maybe I need to make other plans. Like maybe it's the end of festivals and live interactive theatre. I don't know.
No,
Oh man, I turned it a little bleak again.
it's okay. I mean, it's kind of around out here too. Like I love going to concerts.
Yeah.
I like going to comic book conventions too, but live music for me is something that like I need to have at least once or
Mhm.
twice a year.
Oh
And
yeah,
to
sure.
hear that it's like there's nothing next year. Like
Yeah.
there's people because I work at a comic book shop, and one of the
Mhm.
guys that comes in is in that industry where he sets up lighting and stuff, and he
Yeah.
said there's nothing.
Yeah.
2021, it's out, and
Yeah. And I don't know about over there, but there's so little support for freelancers here as well. Like all of my friends who are roadies and lighting technician, and
yeah.
they've just lost everything. So yeah, it's scary. Yeah, I miss live music. Like
Yeah.
I feel like this time of year I should have permanent tinnitus, and my hearing is fine. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Um, so you said real quick before I ask you another question. You said you and Shelly have different tastes in music. What
Oh,
what kind of music are you into?
Oh, well, with me and Shelly, it was like there's like that Blur Oasis Britpop thing.
Yeah, I saw that picture she shared the other day.
Yeah, she's like a big Oasis fan, and I grew up in Essex, which is where Blur are from, so I'm kind of default a Blur fan. But really, I mean, the real answer in Blur versus Oasis is Pulp. Um, but yeah, you know, me and Shirley have like pretend arguments about it, but it's fine. Um, what kind of? I listen to a lot of music, really. I like, you know, I like a lot of kind of classic stuff, like Bowie and the Kinks.
Hmm.
But you know, I listen to a lot of electronic music, I suppose, when I'm working. Like I like Square Pusher and Aphex Twin, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, all over the place, you know. I'm kind of the like, I grew up with Napster, like
Yeah.
ripping MP3s. So like, you know, people are like, "Oh, what's your favorite album?" And I'm like, I don't know. I just illegally downloaded individual songs when I was a teenager. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I remember those days.
yeah, which is what Spotify kind of is now, really.
Hmm.
Like, I listen to long kind of playlists that I've put together, but I don't know. I don't really listen to whole albums anymore. But yeah, I guess because we go to all the festivals in the summer, like it's kind of amazing because you see like all the new bands, like especially at like places like Glastonbury, like
Yeah,
every year I'm like, you kind of like throw a dart at the program because you just don't know what a lot of them are, and you discover amazing stuff. Um, like I went to see Christine and the Queens. I don't know if she's
hmm
kind of broken America yet. Is that still a thing? I guess breaking America. She's like a French kind of electronic pop star who's awesome. Um, yeah, all over
Cool.
the
I'll
place.
definitely look into her.
Yeah, she's great. She's great.
And are there any other projects that you're working on? I know you said you finished Bitterroot 10. Are you working on the next volume of that, or what are
Yeah,
you currently doing?
I guess we are gonna be getting the trade paperback ready. Um, and then I just finished Maddie. There's another thing possibly in the pipeline, but for now, like I think because schools are probably going to open here in September, I'm like looking forward to having a bit of family time at the end of August. Um, yeah, you know, I did a cover yesterday, which was cool. My first cover. Yeah, I don't know. Sanford keeps hinting that there's stuff coming along, so
Okay, cool.
you know, I just feel so lucky to have done what I have. So, you know, if this comics stuff keeps coming, like it's awesome and I love it.
Hmm.
Um, but otherwise, I've had like a super fun time.
And what books or creators are you currently following? Are you currently checking out?
I just read. Um, hang on, I literally just read Laura Dean
Nice.
Keeps Breaking Up with Me, which I loved. I
I
was like,
haven't.
man, I wish I'd read this as a kid. It's so good. I loved that. I finished that just before we were speaking. I read um, The House by Paco Roca, I think is his name, which
Okay.
was like this really nice graphic novel about kind of a family, well, the siblings kind of dealing with the belongings of their father who's passed away. It's quite a sad but sweet little book, which was beautiful. And the colours on that were so nice, like really muted but evocative. What else have I been reading? I feel like I've just been working pretty solidly, so I haven't been reading a lot. Um, mm, I read Tilly Walden. Like, I've been kind of working my way through all of her stuff.
Yeah, she's amazing. I
Yeah,
love
I
her
mean,
stuff.
I think her use of color is just, I love it. It's so expressive and beautiful, and it's like that kind of like it seems quite minimal and simple, but I think that's kind of the hardest thing to do, really. Um, yeah, no, I think her stuff's great. But yeah, I'm also like trying to like educate myself in like the world of superhero comics as well, because it's just not like something I kind of, you know, I've read like all the kind of obvious stuff like The Killing Joke and that kind of stuff. But people like, I'm talking to more people in the comics world who like bring up these characters, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
I know it can be daunting, definitely. I mean, I know my friend Jen, she, you know, when she got into comics, she like went to a comic store and just like, where the fuck do I start? Like, there's just so much. So she's like mostly indie stuff. I think she's read like a few of the other stuff, but yeah, it can be
the same as me. I think superhero comics is kind of, it's so daunting. And it's like if you walk into a comic book shop and you see like all these Batman, Spider-Man titles or whatever, you're like, where do I, which is the beginning, like it's, you know, where do I get into this? Like it's kind of hard to like penetrate, I suppose. Well, that's how it seems. I don't know. But yeah, I need to like, I need to try and get, where should I start? What would you recommend?
If you give me characters, I can easily recommend stuff. Like if you were to ask me about Batman, I would say Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. If you ask me about Spider-Man, I'd also say like another Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale, which is Spider-Man Blue, was a great story, one off. But there's so many, you know, like and I've been reading since I was 5. I'm 33, so that's 28 years of me reading comics, and I've never. I mean, I think I've maybe taken brief breaks, but then I always catch up, you know. But I mean, I think now more than ever, I'm finding myself backing away from Marvel, DC. I find myself connecting more with you know, stuff that's from indie publishers. I think Boom Studios has really emerged as with some great content. Obviously Image is killing it, you know.
Oh man, so good.
Yeah, so I mean, I like I said, I find myself, I think like this is the least amount of DC comics I've ever had, just more on like a personal level of how I feel about how they're treating the direct market and stuff like that. So I just keep taking books off my pull list. I'm like, I don't really want to support some, you know, company like that, you know, like I'd rather pay money and support creators where they get to they're making the money, not AT&T over here and Disney over here. You know, they got enough money. They don't need the support. So, but yeah, I think if anything, just read more indie comics. You're not missing much from the superhero stuff. You have plenty of stuff you can read indie. I could give you recommendations for days of that too, you know?
All right. We'll do that in email, I guess.
Awesome. Anyways, I do want to thank you for your time again today. I would love to do another chat sometime in the future. Get some rest. I know things are tough as a parent. I mean, it's rough. It's been rough for me. So, but yeah, thank you so much. Could you share though, real quick, where everybody listening and watching can find your stuff, and I'll also throw those links down below.
My Instagram is @diemortal, which is a really obscure video game reference. And then sofiedodgson.com is my website.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much again, and take care.
Cool.